So, Brooks, I want to know if I should hire a lawyer. I was in a car accident, cops came, my car got totaled. I was a little sore, but, when do I know if I should or should not use a lawyer for this car accident that I had?
It really depends on kind of the severity of the crash and the severity of your injuries. What are your medical bills looking like?
I mean, I've gone to the chiropractor a couple times. I went to a physical therapist just to try and get back into, the swing of things as quickly as possible. It looks like it's probably somewhere around $3,000. Insurance took care of a lot of it because I have insurance, but, I probably shouldn't be going through my insurance. I would assume I was not at fault for this accident.
So in this example, if you have, let's say you go to the emergency room and you follow up with a treater, either a chiro or a physical therapist or your primary care physician, and you have, I don't know, maybe let's say $3,000 in meds, like you said. And maybe you've missed a week of work, you're missing about $500 worth of lost wages. In those situations, you may not need a lawyer. A lawyer in that situation may or may not be able to really add a whole lot of value. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that's $3,500 of total kind of hard expenses that you're out, right? When you start negotiating with the insurance company, if it's at $3,500, you're going to want to be shooting for somewhere, let's say $6,000 or $7,000 up to around maybe $10,000 to $12,000. Okay. And so there's that range. You don't have to worry about missing out on a $40,000 result, right? Or missing out on a $30,000 result. Because at $3,500, the most you're probably going to get in South Carolina, and it might even be smaller than that in some of the jurisdictions in South Carolina, is probably around $6,000 to $8,000. That's kind of like where you might want to be shooting for. And if you hire a lawyer, if that lawyer is able to, let's say you hire us and we're able to get you $12,000, right? At $12,000, you're going to pay us 1/3 of that, which is $4,000, right? And
Public math, not a good thing to do.
Yeah, I carry the one here. That's going to put you back down to 8, right? Which is probably the top range of what you're going to be looking at in most counties in South Carolina.
So in theory, I could hire a lawyer, and the benefit for me of that is I don't have to do the work, but I'm probably going to get the same amount of money or compensation.
Yeah, that is where the first decision kind of matrix comes in of like, okay, do I want to do all this on my own? Do I want to carry that?
Because it is
on my own?
Work.
It's a lot of work, right? It's not in that range of medical bills and hard expenses that are lost to you. It's not rocket science, right? What you're trying to do, we talk about a lot in here, you're just trying to fill up these buckets that you've lost, right? One of those buckets is the medical expenses bucket, right? And the other one is your lost wages bucket. If you are a W-2 employee that misses a week of work, even if you get paid time off,
it's an easy way to calculate.
It's easy. Bucket. Your job is to fill that little other bucket up, whatever that kind of pain and suffering bucket is right there on the end. But in those situations, most people can handle that on their own. It's not that's not rocket science. I mean, we can do it for you, or a personal injury lawyer can do it for you, but it's more about taking the burden off of you in that process. Same reason why you might hire an accountant, even if you are a W-2 employee, to do your taxes, right? Like,
what's your time and headache worth?
That's right. It's just a way to kind of get that stuff off your back and make sure you're not missing anything, right? But there's really not a lot to miss. There's not a lot of value that you don't know about, right? Because it's very straightforward. It's fairly easy to say that this is one of those situations where you probably don't need a lawyer unless you really want one. Now, the only thing I would say in that caveat is that you do not want to settle your case until you know that you are 100% healed, even if you don't have a lawyer, right? That's one of those things. Like, you might be sitting here 2 weeks after the car crash with $3,000 in medical bills and $500 in lost wages. You've returned to work, but it's only been 2 weeks, right? Maybe you think you have a nagging, maybe there's a little pain in your knee or a little pain in your back, and you think that it might go away. Don't bank on it going away. Just wait, right? So that's the one thing where you don't want to get into a rush to settle it, right? you can settle it, but know that if you do, if that nagging thing actually turns out to be a real injury from the crash, you have closed your opportunities to then go back and get.
So even if I do settle and get what I'm deserved, and let's say in a couple months my knee really starts acting up after this accident, there's nothing I can do.
Nothing you can do. And I mean, you can still go get treatment, right? You can still go to the doctor, use your health insurance, but your ability to hold the person responsible that caused the crash for your injuries is over. Right? As soon as you settle your case, sign that document, cash that check, whatever the case may be, you have closed your opportunity to then get justice for the pain and the injuries and the suffering that you went through in that crash. So as soon as you settle the case, the gauntlet closes, or the door closes on your ability to seek any kind of recourse.
So let's think about on the opposite side of this. That's when, hiring a lawyer might not be the most effective. Is there like a number or a set of factors when you're like, hey, no matter what, you should at least speak to a lawyer first? Because, there's a couple of these things where like almost every time a lawyer is going to be able to help you more.
It starts to be more evident that you need to at least speak to a lawyer as your medical bills start to climb. If you go to the emergency room and let's say you have a $15,000 or $25,000 emergency room bill, right? But you might be sitting in a place right now, maybe it's, let's use the same example, 2 weeks out, right? You went to the emergency room and the doctors didn't find anything wrong with you, right? They did a lot of diagnostic tests. They put you through the CT scanner. They looked at your brain. They looked at your head. It did, scans of your legs, all that things. And so you have these big bills. But when they send you home at the end, they say, just follow up with your primary care physician. We didn't, what they're trying to do in the emergency room is make sure you're not dying, right? So when they figure out you're not dying and there's not a bone sticking out, they're going to send you home, right? And so in those situations, if you can let some time pass, maybe there's a month that goes by, 2 months that go by, and you decide, I want to get this case settled, you probably could do that on your own, but it would behoove you to at least talk to a lawyer about, how to handle those bills and things like that. That's the first kind of question, right? The first question that says, do I need a lawyer? I might need one right now.
That's the lowest tier of like a true maybe.
That's right. It's a true maybe of like,
it's worth a free call.
That's right. That's right. I've got these crazy bills. Even if your health insurance, this is one thing, even if your health insurance has paid for everything, or you have like, there's a copay there of $1,000 you're going to pay, but there's $30,000 of actual bills. You want to make sure that you're talking to somebody, and most people that do what we do, they're going to at least talk you through how you probably don't need. You go back to our example of when you probably don't need a lawyer, that delta of 6 to maybe 10, right? That's only $4,000 you may be missing out on if you screw something up. Well, when you get to the $15,000 range, now they're going to be offering you, they might offer you, let's say they'll offer you 18. And a lawyer might think, well, I probably could get you 25 or 35, or maybe the upper range is 35. You won't, as those medical bills climb, that analysis or that calculation that the insurance company is doing about your case, the delta starts to get pretty wide, right? Mm-hmm. The difference, like when it's a $3,000 claim, you're looking at 6 to 10.
Yeah, like let's say you only get 80% of what it's worth at $3,000. The difference of a lawyer getting you the extra 20%,
right,
is not as big of a number,
or even you getting it, right? Like the knowledge gap becomes bigger as those medical bills,
the numbers get bigger,
right?
Yeah.
And the medical bills alone aren't what I would say is the all determining factor of lawyer or no lawyer. It just starts to be the kind of thought process that you probably want to start thinking about, how to handle those bills when there are serious injuries that come into play. When you have permanent damages, right? You have a herniated disc. There are serious injuries. That is when you certainly need to talk to a lawyer, right? You have scarring. Maybe something as simple as the airbag blew up in my face and I have a scar on my face or I have a scar on my arm, right? Your medical bills from that crash may only be $5,000 or $6,000 because you didn't suffer um, any other objective injuries, right? You didn't break a bone, you didn't herniate a disc, nothing like that. But now there's some scarring. Then it becomes, okay, what is that worth? What is the analysis on that worth? And that's when it's obviously not rocket science then, but that's when it becomes a little bit more nuanced, right? And you want to make sure that you have the knowledge to fill that third bucket up, that pain and suffering, that disfigurement bucket up. And the only way you can probably know what to do there is with a lawyer.